Hey everyone, welcome to the 10th episode of the Wheels to Walking podcast, the podcast with a guy in a wheelchair and a guy not in a wheelchair.
What up?
Thanks everyone for listening. We've really been enjoying all of the activity that's been going on in our podcast group on Facebook.
Yes.
We had initially had it as like a Wheelie Boys, but
it was called Wheelie Boys. I think the initial intention was to create just a wheelchair, spinal cord injury kind of group.
Yeah, but there's so many out there that are so good. I didn't even bother to approve anybody or didn't even bother to make any interactions or anything. And then when the podcast launched, we just renamed it and then told everybody, hey, we renamed it. So if
this is the podcast group now. So if you don't want to be a part of the podcast group, you can leave. But if you want to stay, sweet.
Yeah, so this episode, we suspect, is going to be having a lot of discussions about what we're going to talk about within the Facebook group. So we're kind of excited because we're going to be ruffling some feathers, I think.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, maybe hopefully not. Actually, hopefully not. I hope our listeners are wise enough and intelligent enough to be critical thinkers, to be like, yes, this is...
Well, yeah, because actually last episode we had some controversial things where people were like, actually no, and then some people were like, actually yes. So it's just kind of funny to see where that lies. So jump in the Facebook group if you want to have more of a dialogue on what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we try not to, we will interact in the comments, but the thing about the comments, especially on YouTube, it's just a shit show, dude. It's just a complete mess of just people throwing poop at each other and yelling, and it's like, who are you anyway? You're just like a weird hex of a username with a blue background and an A. You know,
that is the best thing about Facebook, to be honest, is when you have discussions, you can look at their public profile and it's probably filled out, and they probably have family members, and they're a real person, unless they're on Facebook specifically to troll. And then you can just kind of ignore them or block them or whatever, but you don't come across
like a sock puppet account, like a completely fake account.
Yeah, or a meme account or whatever, but you don't come across those as frequently on Facebook as you would on YouTube, because YouTube, the nature of YouTube is that you got to create a lot of good quality stuff to break through, and so a lot of people just post one or two videos or no videos or whatever, and their account is just a standard icon.
Yeah, most people are there.
Out account.
Yeah, most people are there just to view, not necessarily to.
Yeah. It's a consumption platform, not as much a interaction platform.
Right.
Most people don't even comment ever. So the comments are just lame. But if you do comment on our YouTube videos, we do appreciate that because we do go through them from time to time, but we don't interact as thoroughly on there. So
yeah.
But anyways,
so speaking of Facebook groups, Andrew, you're on some wild ones. Let me tell you, and I am not on them. I'm on Facebook pretty much only for the spinal cord injury support groups and the occasional friend or whatever. But your Facebooking is more entertainment.
Yeah.
It's more funny. It's more comical. And
I'm in
also,
quite a few Facebook groups. I'd say that's the main reason why I go on Facebook, is for the groups.
Well, Facebook is turning into a groups platform anyway.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of the groups that I'm in, it's very, very funny. I think about this frequently, is that I'm in a lot of groups that are polar opposites. I'm in this group that's it's the Joe Rogan Facebook group, where it's literally just a bunch of bro dudes posting the raunciest and a lot of misogynistic type shit, and bitches be and shit like that, oh man, this girl blah blah blah, or showing some crazy murder thing. And then I'm also in another group that's called Men Are So Confused About Their Current Market Value. And it's literally a group of women, extreme hardcore feminist women, that are calling out men on the exact type of bullshit that the dudes in the Joe Rogan Facebook podcast group are posting. And by the way, I'm in a couple of Joe Rogan Facebook groups. One of them is just a shit show.
Is that bro Jogan?
Yeah, it's just bro Jogan is a liking page. That's someone that posts stuff as a meme. But this page is basically just a shit show. It honestly has nothing to do with the Facebook, with the podcast. It's just a bunch of bros. And then there's another one that's called True Fans of the Joe Rogan Podcast. And it was created because people were yeah, this other group has nothing to do with the podcast. What the fuck are we doing in here? And they actually do have discussions about the podcast sometimes, which is nice. But anyways, the point being is I'm in a lot of random groups. And it's funny because when you just stick to your normal timeline and your friends, you only get the opinions of the people that you've like specifically friended and things like that, and maybe like some randos from your high school or whatever over the years.
Stuck in a bubble, basically.
Yeah, exactly. You get stuck in a bubble, and that's what I kind of like about the Facebook groups is you're just exposed to a very interesting cast of characters. So one specific funny group that I've been in recently is called I think it's called International Big Game Wook Hunters, and it's basically.
So tell me what a wook is first of all.
So a wook. A lot of people think it's a fan of bass nectar, like people in the EDM scene. They're like, "Oh, you're a wook. You like bass nectar." That is not really technically what a wook is. A wook is someone that typically has like dreadlocks. They're very stinky. They are probably like semi-homeless. Maybe they live in their car. They're really gross. They do lots of drugs. They're basically just like perma-stoned. They typically don't wear shoes, and they borrow or steal like everything. And they probably make money by like selling like random little trinkets that they make, or like somehow like selling drugs or something. So they're basically just like white trash to the max, and they like travel around their favorite artists. Like they follow like their favorite musicians around. Typically in the EDM scene, they follow like very like trippy, like bass nectar kind of like shit.
So
like
the
that.
equivalent of what like Deadheads were in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I would say like that's actually I think where the term was from, and the term comes from a Wookiee, like Chewbacca. Mm-hmm. Like you think of like Chewbacca as like this kind of like hairy kind of weird guy, and it's like literally you're like a wook when you're just like a stinky like hairy dreadlocky person. And I'm not saying that everyone with dreadlocks smells. I'm just saying like that's typically like the stonery look of a wook.
Yeah, and I was next to a wook at a Not What's So Not concert, and he had a spoon out and was cooking his heroin.
Nice.
Like right there, like
nice.
Pulled up a needle. I'm like, are you about to shoot up on the dance floor? Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. And I didn't know if it was heroin. Could have been ketamine. It could have been cocaine. It could have been a mix of everything. Like, I don't know what he was up to, but he was dead ass, like with a spoon and a lighter, like, and I'm like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah,
I got to get out of here.
There's certain times where you're just like, am I in public right now? Like, what is happening right now? Mm-hmm. And so anyways, this group is priceless. There's also a great page on Instagram called The Festival List. That's a great page for wooks. It used to be called Wooks Doing Things, but they had to change their name for some like legal reasons or something. I have no idea.
The Doing Things
group.
Well,
it's run by Doing Things, but they had to change it to Festival List. I don't know why, but it's still hilarious. But anyway, so there was this girl there's one guy in particular. He's a DJ called Tipper that's very well known for having a large fan base of wooks. And like you go to one of his shows, the crowd just like reeks of like DMT, and like everyone's on ketamine. Like it's very, very Wookiee. And it's because like he's very well known for having like crazy visuals. Like he hires like really, really good famous like artists to do his visuals while he's playing. And he's not really the centerpiece at all. He actually like stands off to the side and DJs, and the whole thing is basically like the visuals, which is pretty cool. I've never actually been to a Tipper show, but it actually sounds awesome, but I mainly don't want to go because of the wooks. So anyways, there was this girl that fell off of a building in New Orleans for Tipper. Like everyone was like talking about this girl that like fell off a building. Like, holy shit, this girl fell off a balcony when she was at Tipper or whatever. And so she posted in an EDM group. I'm in a lot of those too. And she said, "Oh, I fell 4 stories." She posted a picture of her in the hospital. If you're watching the video, you might be able to kind of see it. But it's a picture of her in the hospital, and says, "Fell 4 stories off a building while in NOLA for Tipper. I could really use healing words or encouragement for my physical therapy, please. Had my carnelian stone of protection on me. Divine intervention." And she's holding her little carnelian stone, which I have no idea what the fuck that is. But apparently it is for protection or some bullshit.
It's a magic rock.
So everyone's like, holy shit, like this girl, blah, 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 whatever, sending her. I think she was even at some point like accepting like donations for hospital bills and stuff.
Like a GoFundMe or something?
Yeah, something. I didn't get I don't know the like full lore of the whole story, but someone comments underneath and they said, "Hey, we need the full story of how you fell 4 stories." And so she comments, and this is where this whole screenshot thing got posted into International Big Game Wook Hunters, and it says, "NOLA Tipper Wook bagged and tagged, boys. Quote unquote, the demons told me to jump off a building." So here we go.
Strap in, everyone. It's a wild ride. Strap in.
So this is what she said. She goes, "A lot of people are asking about how I fell, and honestly, I feel a little bit uncomfortable sharing because it revolves around mysticism. Essentially, I was practicing tarot outside on a balcony, unsafe, with not much protection. Hadn't even cleansed the deck properly. Dude, she hadn't even cleansed her tarot deck properly. Bro. That is just asking for trouble. Does she
mean the tarot deck, or does she mean like the deck she was on?
Oh, maybe. I think she was talking about the tarot deck.
I think she means like she hadn't saged the deck that she was on.
Either way,
I don't understand these people. I have no idea. Something wasn't cleansed.
And she said, I was out there as a beacon of light. This kind of like this pure lantern attracting these horrific moths. Okay. And she goes, to put it in basic terms, I inadvertently messed with energies that wanted to hurt me. In my meditative, terrified state, I saw no way out other than stepping off the roof.
Are we in Bandersnatch right now? Are we watching Black Mirror Bandersnatch?
Just wait.
Are we in Bandersnatch right now?
Just wait. She goes, so I stepped off the roof to get away. I had carnelian on me to protect me, like it's her fucking rock. Ended up landing directly on my feet. No damage to my head, no damage to my arms, and no damage to my fingers.
Okay.
No way, your fingers were safe?
Dude, this sounds like rocks gone wrong.
And then she goes, I was protected in that sense. So the rock protected you from getting injured, but you also fucking jumped off of a building.
See, I don't know if this is mental illness or drugs or just believing in something that isn't real.
It's delusion.
I think it's a smoothie. I think it's all of those, dude. I think it's a combination
of unmedicated schizophrenic bipolar mixed with LSD, mixed with believing that like rocks and magic cards have the power over you or something.
Well, that's the funny thing is a lot of these people will like get into like conversations with you while, like at a music festival and be like, dude, that's why religion is fucking bullshit, dude. But then they're like collecting fucking crystals and telling you about their healing powers and stuff. It's like, that's the same thing with a different skin on it.
No, seriously. I've known quite a few people who have left religion to quote find spirituality, and they always find it in like tarot cards and crystals and in meditation, and they talk about like the miracles and their healing powers and like Reiki, like this like magical like I don't touch you but I touch you type,
I touch
stuff.
You with my vibrations and my energies, bro.
And I'm like, you do know that's the same thing, right? Like it's the same thing.
You're still believing in something.
You're still
fake.
believing in some magic, and it's like I remember one time there's this bookstore here in Atlanta that has like they sell crystals and stuff, and the crystals are expensive. They're very expensive, and they're just rocks. Let's not get it twisted. They're rocks, and they're pretty rocks, but they're just,
they might be like quote unquote like precious rocks. Like there is a cool factor of having like a rare mineral or rare stone. Like I wouldn't knock people if they were literally just like, yo, I like collecting rocks. That's fucking fine.
They're not rocks. They're minerals, Marie.
They're crystals. They have healing properties. You charge them in the sun and insert them in your butthole. Okay? They're not just fucking stupid rocks.
Okay. So
anyways,
so like me and two other friends went. One of them was like into the crystals, and me and another buddy went with him. And the lady behind the counter would just like pick up a random rock and just start making up stuff about it for like 10, 20 minutes, and then set it down, and someone else would be like, ooh, what about this one? And she'd just pick it up and just start making up stuff. And they would set it back down.
Well, also they'll try to like, I mean, again, I'm not super knowledgeable on this stuff, but at the end of the day, these people running these shops are also super wacko. So they probably believe a lot of their own stuff.
I mean, the same way that like pastors believe in the Bible, and it's like just as wacko,
But also like they're probably, kind of like how a fortune teller or something along those lines will like get information on you somehow throughout like the
cold
talking.
reading.
And also it's like placebo effect. Like you want it to work, so it works kind of. So it's like, they're like, oh, so what are you dealing with? What are you coming in today for? And it's like, oh, well, I've really been dealing with anxiety. It's like, oh, well, this calcimite rock will actually, if you charge it in the sun and then hold it close to your chest, it will comfort you. And then you do that and you're like, oh, the reason why you actually feel relaxed and less anxiety is not just because you're holding this fucking rock close to your chest. It's because you're like intentionally taking a moment to try to make yourself less anxious and like calm down.
Mm-hmm.
Like
rub it with your forefinger and thumb and give it a blessing and a kiss. Oh.
And set an intention.
And then set an intention that it will calm you down, and then put it in your heart, and then put it in your bag next to your money, and then you will be more abundant because
and throughout
not
your
only
day,
does it pure... not only will you be less anxious, you will have more money.
And also, at the end of the day, you take it out of your butthole and charge it in the sun.
We are referencing a legitimate, actual rock that can be found on Goop, which is Gwyneth Paltrow's.
I was about to mention Goop. Can we talk about Goop for a second? Have you seen her Netflix show that she has?
No, but I recently saw a vagina candle.
Yeah, she has a candle that they sell on Goop that says, "This candle smells like my vagina." On the candle.
Yeah.
My question is, what the fuck?
Well, it's just one of these things that anyone will just believe what any celebrity says.
Well, it's not even just Gwyneth Paltrow. Like, Goop is kind of bigger than her at this point because they do sell some things on the Goop website. So just to back up for a second.
Well, there's also Goop stores too.
Gwyneth Paltrow
and
owns a company called Goop. She started a company called Goop, Goop, and they sell all kinds of
just
creams
nonsense.
And lotions.
Just
and
nonsense.
It's a lot of woo-woo type bullshit. A lot of the type of stuff that we're talking about right now. Like, they sell a water bottle with a crystal in it. So like when your water gets infused with the fucking whatever. Like, it's just crazy. The one thing that got me was that they sold these jade eggs, these eggs made out of crystal rock, these jade eggs that you're supposed to insert in your vagina to do something. Cleanse it? I don't fucking know. But the funny thing is they had to recall it because people were getting infections or something. I don't know the full story, but it was a whole thing where
they were getting toxic shock syndrome.
Yeah, doctors were like, hey, don't fucking do this. It was so ridiculous. But she has a new series on Netflix. I think it's called The Goop Lab. And oh my God, is it toxic, bro? The trailer itself, even, I was literally just face palming the whole time because basically in every episode, it's kind of like the whole, those series where it's Joe Rogan questions everything, where he goes out and is oh, I'm going to disprove Bigfoot on this one. But on her show, she's going and trying to uncover these random weird things. She goes to an orgasm expert, and then she goes to a Reiki healer, and then she goes to all these random things to try to explore this weird realm of pseudoscience, and it's just utter nonsense.
Well, this is my thing that I've come to learn about these people. They have what I like to call broken thinking. And
this is also a Richardism. Richard always goes, it's something I like to call this.
It's seriously
that one might be one of the best. It's this little thing I like to call your brain's fucking broken. It's just a little thing. I've noticed it with a few people, but your brain is broken.
It's not that your brain is broken. It's you have broken thinking.
Yeah.
And what broken thinking is to me is when you do not understand this one particular line of thinking called logical fallacies. Logical fallacies are patterns of incorrect thinking versus correct thinking versus incorrect thinking. For example, if you go out and try to find a truth about something that you want to find, that is called cognitive bias. You have a bias because you want to prove that it is correct. And then every time that it is proven incorrect to you, due to this thing called cognitive dissonance, you then have a stronger truth. So the more that people try to tell you you're wrong or it's incorrect or there's evidence of it being wrong or incorrect, the more you deeply believe it to be true. We can see this most drastically applied in the vaccine movement, where, in 1998, there was a paper that was published linking autism and vaccine. In 2000, it was retracted because it turned out to be completely fraudulent, like totally made up data. Like the guy got his license stripped from him. And even still to this day, people want to believe that vaccines are bad, vaccines cause autism. And the more data and the more studies and the more information that comes out over and over and over and over again about how safe and efficacy and like positive and good vaccines are for all of humanity, these individuals have this broken thinking that forces them to believe what they believe even more and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think, for me, for example, I learned about logical fallacies when I started to remove myself from religion. My whole life I was a Christian and grew up in the Christian area, like did the youth group, did the church, did the whole thing. And then the more I tried to learn about God and the more I went on this spiritual journey, the more non-answers I got. The more I got hit these dead ends everywhere. And I was like, why can't I find one answer? I need an answer. So I would then go to well,
also this was after your injury too, is like after your injury, you also were starting to realize all these things that people would say. And you're like, no.
Well, I wanted to find meaning and purpose in my injury.
Yeah.
So I was seeking.
Yeah. Like God did this to me for a reason or whatever.
Exactly. I was seeking to try to find answers within spirituality and religion. And then I was like, okay, let me see what they have to say in Judaism. Let me see what they have to say in Islam. Let me see what they have to say, in Buddhism. And the more and more I looked, I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then finally I found this guy named Matt Dillahunty, who runs this cool show on public access TV in Texas called The Atheist Experience. And then he would have live on-air debates with people who would come to him with, reasons why they thought God was real, yada, yada, whatever. And then he just started, he would just constantly debunk what they were saying to the point where they would get angry and hang up. Just nonstop, they would just get angry and hang up. And I'm like,
yeah.
And I'm like, this is interesting because although I'm a Christian and I'm trying to find a reason to believe in God, I'm agreeing with everything this guy's saying. So I'm like, wait a minute, am I not a Christian though? And then I learned about science and the scientific method and peer-reviewed scientific journals and what it takes in order to get into a peer-reviewed scientific journal is you have to not only try to disprove your methods as much as possible, you hand it off to a group of strangers and they try to disprove it as much as possible. And if they do disprove it, then you don't get in the journal. So it's I then realized I'm like, oh, I've got broken thinking. And then once I realized that my thinking was broken, I was like, okay, let me readjust. And then my eyes were just open to everything. I was like, holy shit. And then I started listening to this really cool podcast called Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, which was really just a group of three brothers that were all just really smart people,
questioning
and very high and very qualified, and would just question everything from homeopathy to pseudoscience to crystals to psychics to religion to just everything. They would just constantly have conversations about it, and I was like, oh, I get it now. It's not. I just was thinking wrong. I didn't know how to think. It was broken thinking. And I think a lot of people are victims of their own broken thinking and they just don't know. You don't know that you don't know. And especially when you're surrounded by other people that also have broken thinking that can confirm all these beliefs that you have. And I think that goes into, crystals. I think that goes into psychics. I think that goes into religion. I think that goes into literally anything. And a lot of it is you briefly mentioned, placebo. Is it working because you want it to work? I think about astrology and horoscopes.
You are jumping around a lot, and I have 9 things to talk about. Can
I
jump in for a second?
Yeah.
So one thing I want to touch back on.
I was totally on a rant right there.
Yeah, I was just letting you go, and I was like, he talked about 3 things. I want to talk about all 3 of them, and then you're like, then horoscopes. I'm like, God damn it, I got to jump in here. Okay,
Did you make notes?
No, I got them in my head. So, first thing I want to talk about, to back up a little bit with the crystals and stuff, and also with religion, is I think a lot of people find comfort in finding answers. Like you said, they're looking for answers, but they're not looking for reasons why those answers might be wrong necessarily. So if they just hear something and it kind of makes sense, you just like find those pathways where you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know,
you try to find a reason for it to be right. So like,
for example, you know, people get into the church because they're like, oh, my life is like going downhill. And then they like might go to a church service and then they like start to feel good because they sit in church and then they find community. And like, there's all these snowballing effects of like going to church and hanging out with Christians and good people that make your life better, minus the actual like teachings and Bible. Like those are just good things for your life. Community,
sense of belonging.
Exactly. And I think like, for example, you know, you could get into, for example, yoga. You know, I am someone who goes to yoga a lot, and like I can see how a lot of people will, you know, go to yoga and then they go into either like the Buddhism side or the spirituality side where, and that's another weird thing about the whole crystal woo-woo type thing is there's not really like a specific name for it because there's so many levels to it and there's not like a specific religion to it. So it's very hard to just pinpoint and be like, that's bullshit because, but they're like, oh, well, I don't believe in that. I just believe in this. And it's very pick and choose.
I remember in the early 2000s, late 90s when yoga was on the rise, there was like gossip inside of the church that I went to that was like,
there still is.
So-and-so's doing yoga because like they thought yoga was a religion and they thought it was like a satanic religion. It's like they're bowing and worshiping and practicing and chanting and they have these motions and exercises and they, you know.
It does like, feel very it's religion-y. It feels very ritualistic.
I mean, it's not. It's like stretching with meditation.
Yeah, basically. But if you go to full classic yoga, like it is deeply rooted in religion.
Not modern anymore. Not modern yoga. Modern yoga is more about like
westernized yoga, not modern yoga.
That's what I meant to say.
I would say tradition, like actual yogis would not consider fucking like core power and stuff like real yoga. They're like, oh, that's like Starbucks yoga.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like, yeah, there's benefits to everything. Again, like I think that the reason why so many people gravitate towards these things is not because they're inherently bad or they want to be manipulated or anything. They're trying to find the answers to the universe, dude. Like everyone's on this planet confused as shit. There's no fucking rule book of like what works, what doesn't work, what's right and what's wrong. You're just trying to figure it out. And I think it's very convenient for people when they start to find a lot of people that seem like they have the answers to just kind of like go along with it without questioning it. And even if you do start questioning it, like you said, you kind of got that like cognitive dissonance and stuff and cognitive bias where you start to just be like, oh, well, they just haven't found the truth yet. Oh, they're just asking these questions or they're saying these things because they don't know. Like I think about when I was in Bible school, like they would say that like the earth was like 6,000 years old. And I just was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then it's like when you actually break it down, you're like, no, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like that seems ridiculous. That seems ridiculous.
Seems
like, you know,
lunatic. And you know, I think kind of touching on the you know, like thought of, oh, I just need to find a group of people that believe these things. I used to believe there was like oh, well, it's got to be true if, you know, 500 million people believe it, then it's got to be true. And it's like, just because a lot of people believe something to be true doesn't mean it's true. 66% of Americans believe that aliens have been here at Roswell. Does that mean it's true? No.
But it doesn't mean it's not true, but Agreed. It doesn't mean it's true.
Agreed, but I'm saying like just because a lot of people, that's another logical fallacy. I forget what it's called. I think it's called appeal to authority or something along those lines where it's like, or appeal to group. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But it's the idea.
It's like groupthink.
Groupthink, yeah. It's like, oh, a bunch of people believe this, then it must be true. It's like, oh, a bunch of people believe crystals to be true, it must be true. Oh, a bunch of people believe the Earth is 6,000 years old, must be true.
Well, people also want to be part of a community, right? Like, I mean, I can see how it's very easy to fall into these paths because as soon as you believe all these things that everyone believes, you're like a part of the thing, you know, like it's very easy to, you know, for example, I think about, you know, some of the people that we met in like Venice Beach and stuff. It'd be very easy, like, you know, my friend David, for example, he's in like Tulum right now in like Mexico, like having like the coolest experiences right now. And I look at all of his friends, I'm like, oh, these guys are like straight up like freaking hippies that believe in like some weird shit. And I'm like, I would want to go on this trip with them. But at the same time, like, I don't know if I'd be fully like taken in and welcomed by all of them unless I started wearing like wooden beads and like chanting with them and doing like fucking Kundalini yoga with them and like all these weird
beach meditations
and like charging my crystals and fucking like who knows what else. Like there's just all these things where there's all these little subcultures that you're not really a part of unless you go full force, kind of like, I even think about like different music scenes. Like you're not fully respected until you have like fucking gauged ears or like tattoos or you wear the right clothes or everyone's got their little thing.
EDM scene, metal scene, hip hop scene.
I mean, even the church scene, dude. Like you showed up to church wearing the wrong thing, you're like the other. You show up to the gym wearing jeans and flip flops, you're the other. Like you always have to conform to a certain extent. And I think that's what people get very comfortable in, and they don't want to question it because it feels good to just be in a place where you're like, you feel like you're accepted, you feel like you understand the world. Because religion and all things like that, you're just trying to figure out the questions of the universe. And I think also, especially because I have a very similar story with Christianity and stuff, like grew up growing in church and all that, like it's very easy when you have these questions, there's always like a rebuttal to the question. It's like, why did this bad thing happen? Oh, God's testing you. Oh, why did this good thing happen? Oh, well, God's blessing you. It's like, there's always a reason why things happen. Like, for example, you got hit by a car recently, and my brain, because those pathways have just been carved over the years.
Your
and years
automatic
and years.
thought was,
I'm like, what did Richard do that God was like mad at him about? Like that was like where my brain went. But then also I'm like, oh, well, he's not a Christian anymore. He's like talking about this. But I also think about, what if Richard was still a Christian and was, going to church, blah, 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 and this thing happened. What pathways would I think then? I'm like, oh, dude, God always tests his best soldiers, dude. He never gives you anything that you can't. He never gives you anything that you can't deal with, bro. God's got a plan for you, man. God's got a plan, dude.
Gotta have faith.
There's always something good that's going to come out of this, and God's got a plan for Richard, and he's really testing him, but he's going to use this experience as a testimony. Shit like that. And
that's how I thought my original accident was. I literally was like, I was on this quest to find out like how I could use my spinal cord injury as a way to like spread the message of God.
Yeah,
and
of course.
And like, and then the more and more I like searched, I was like, oh, I've got broken thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a while, but like, I remember, I even read, like, a lot of like the Four Horsemen, like atheist books, like I read like God is Not Great. I read The God Delusion, I read some like books by Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett and, Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. And I was like, dude, I'm on these guys' teams. Like I believe everything. Yeah. And then I was like conflicted because I'm like, wait a minute, huh? I would watch, like Neil deGrasse Tyson like explain the universe, and I'm like, oh, I get it. Like I understand this now. Like,
yeah, because also a lot of times
the Big Bang is a lie. God spoke, and then bang.
So you're just telling me that something this big blew up and created the whole universe, like stuff like that. And it's like, oh yeah, that does sound dumb. You're right, haha. Shit like that. And it's very easy to create arguments for any side of anything.
That's called a straw man argument, which you just did right there.
Yeah.
It's misrepresenting the other person's argument to make them seem dumber than they really are.
Yeah, exactly.
That is called another logical fallacy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just it's very easy to fall into. And you were going to talk about horoscopes earlier. I think the thing with horoscopes too that's very weird to me, because there's a lot of people that are very, very into horoscopes and astrology.
Let me pause you real quick.
Yeah.
So before we dive into all of this, so the star map that was used to create astrology is literally no longer effective, meaning that over the hundreds of years, the stars have literally moved, because that's how the universe works, to the point where if astrology were true, you would be practicing it wrong today.
Well, I think
because the stars are different.
Well, no, I think they just to say something on that, I don't know the facts, but I remember a while ago they were saying like the dates have changed now. Like
I don't think they've updated.
No,
them.
they have, dude, because they were saying like if you're born between these dates, you're a Gemini, but like if you're born after like these dates, even though your dad is a Gemini and you're a Gemini, like you're not anymore. Like the things have changed. Like I bet a lot of people don't realize that, but I do remember specifically hearing about that. Like they're like, like if your dad is this and you were born on the same day, you might not be that because the stars have changed or whatever. I don't know, but either way, that is a thing, and a lot of people don't know that.
When I say changed, I don't mean by a little bit. I mean
a lot of it,
like 100%.
Oh, I know.
Ineffective anymore to the point.
But here's the thing: that's not the argument that I give a shit about. The argument that I give a shit about.
Like, if you do believe, let's go down to the root of it and realize.
Okay, well, let's say they
wrong.
are using the correct star map, whatever. Like, I don't care. But the bottom line is, even if you are whatever star sign, even because here's the argument: like, if you were born during Christmas versus born during Halloween, don't you think you'd have like a different experience? Like, if you were, if you were born during summer versus born during winter, don't you think your first experience as a human being, the first things that you experience, you're going to experience cold versus heat. You're going to experience, like, there's different things that form you. Like, the very first months of your life are very important.
Yes, I agree.
And so even if it's not based on stars, maybe it's based on seasons or whatever, there are still things that tend to make sense. Like, maybe if you were born in winter, you're more of like a hardened person and you're more cynical and whatever. Like, that kind of makes sense to me. Like, I don't necessarily.
Maybe if you were born in daylight savings, maybe you are more of a night person than you are a day person.
Yeah, who the fuck knows? Like, I don't know, but I also do know that humans are so complex that I don't think the time of day that you were born and the time of year and whatever has so much effect on you that you can place judgment or you can make predictions. Like, it's so ridiculous. Here's my main gripe against horoscopes and stuff is, at least with like the Bible or the Quran or whatever, you can point to like the prophet or you can point to the God or whatever. Like, okay, Jesus sent his son down and his son did this and these were his disciples and they wrote this book and then here's the book, or Muhammad or whatever. He's the prophet Muhammad and he wrote the book, or, whatever. Even with like Scientology, you can point to like L. Ron Hubbard. Horoscopes and astrology, they have inherently no person that's like writing these predictions. Like, where the fuck, like, if I go to Cosmopolitan and I read my horoscope versus if I go to like some very reputable horoscope website or whatever and read my horoscope and predictions, at the end of the day, some dimwit that's no smarter than you or I is writing that shit.
Yeah, that's
my main
one of my favorite studies about horoscopes ever is when they approached people on the street, I think like 1,000 people, and had the same horoscope, and then asked them. They're like, they read the horoscope to them, and they're like, how much do you think that this applies to you? And literally everyone said, oh yeah, that applies to me. That's totally me. That's absolutely me. And they're like, okay, what's your date? And be like, Aquarius. It's like, okay, well, this is a Cancer.
Yep, exactly.
It's like they
and they're like, oh, that was so Aquarius of you, or whatever. Like, oh, that was so Cancer of you to deceive me. Yeah, I'm trying to find this screenshot. It was literally like,
you sent it to me. Look through the text. If you sent it to me,
I don't think I sent it to you, but it was like basically this Twitter thread of a guy that was like saying how he was like disproving the signs.
My favorite thing about astrology is like,
here we go. Yeah. This guy's Twitter account is called Thoughtful Visions. Pretty funny because it's THOT, thought.
That hoe over there?
He goes, I stalked this astrology hoe's Twitter for about a week and told her I was a Virgo, and she let me smash because she thought we was compatible. Little does she know that I'm a fucking Scorpio, LMFAO. Universe just aligned these. God damn it.
It's a tweet.
Just wait.
These are not his words.
Universe just aligned your cheeks with this dick.
And then someone in the comments.
Just wait. Follow up. Want to know how I know for a fact all this horoscope shit is a bunch of bullshit? All y'all commenting, this is exactly what a Scorpio would do. About dumb as shit, because I'm a Capricorn.
That's totally what a Scorpio would do. A Scorpio would totally do that.
Dude, it was so funny in Weird Hills to Die On. So that's another Facebook group I'm in. It's called Weird Hills to Die On. And it's basically a group where the rules of the group, here, I'll actually pull it up so I can read the real rules because it's actually pretty fascinating. But you basically, the idea is like, the phrase, it's like, oh, I'd die on that hill or whatever. Like, oh, that's a hill I'd die on. It's whatever
thought or opinion or belief you have that might be obscure that you would fight to the death over.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a weird hill. So basically the rules is... hills in this context are statements which can be attacked and defended. posts must be in hill format. So you basically say like hill, and then you state your weird opinion. And then you have to defend your hill within 20 minutes. You can't delete comments or posts. You can't close your own comments. You can't report to Facebook. No harassing, no doxing, no call out posts, whatever. And also do not post zuckable content, meaning like stuff that'll get us like banned or whatever. And it's funny because people will post these hills in the group. And one of them the other day that ruffled a lot of feathers was about astrology. And all these girls in the group were just like, well, I'd really like to know your exact date and time because I really think I have some opinions about you or whatever. And it was so funny.
Side note, why is it usually almost exclusively always women that are into crystals and astrology and tarot and stuff like that,
or dudes that are trying to get in those astrology hose pants?
Yeah, I mean,
like that dude that I was just
think about back in my Christian days, whenever a dude was trying to like get with a girl who like went to Bible study and prayed and like, you know, carried her Bible around with her. You know what he would do? Go to Bible study, pray, carry his Bible around with her. You know,
I think it's kind of like
go on coffee dates and talk about their favorite Bible verses, even though he's like smoking cigarettes and fighting people. It's like, okay.
Well, I think it's also like the same kind of thing of like women being like more romantic and soft side and being more in touch with their
empathic.
Yeah, they're more empathic and they're more in touch with their intuitive side and like blah 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 blah.
I want
to
puke when people say intuitive.
And dude, I have a lot of like me and you both have a lot of like feminine energy and feminine like personality traits or whatever. Like even though both of us are like, we both like work out and go to the gym and stuff. Like you had like sisters growing up and stuff. So you have a lot of things about you that people will be like, oh, that's fucking gay, man.
I don't like sports. I like women's fashion. I'm really emotional. I'm super romantic. You know what I mean? Like those are just little random examples. I communicate a lot.
Yeah. And it's just funny because like I think a lot of like women gravitate towards the like spiritual stuff is again because they're just like looking for answers, and then dudes are just typically like freaking like, oh, okay, if she's into that, I guess I'm into that too.
I think naturally most men are just logical problem solvers. Like whenever a girl friend or a wife or whatever that comes to their man and is like, I'm having this really big problem and I don't know what to do about it, and Becky said this and Joey said this, he'll listen and then give you a solution to your problem. And most of the time girls will get really upset at that. They're like, I don't want a solution to my problem. I want you to listen. And it's like, why are you telling you don't want to fix this? What?
I smell misogyny, Richard. You're a fucking misogynist.
Oh, if that's what makes me misogynist,
I'm just kidding.
Then okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I just think a lot of people get mad about about you making generalizations like that, but I agree.
Facebook group. Am I a misogynist? Thank you. Let's ask that.
I know. Yeah, Hey, Facebook group, is Richard a misogynist? No.
No, but yeah, I don't know if that is a generalization, but I would definitely say that in my life experience, every time any girl has ever come to me with any type of problem and I offer a solution, I always get backlash. And I've got
always, huh?
I mean, I literally can't think of a time where some girl has like, and I have had girlfriends, friends that are girls my entire life, and they always come like, I'm good to talk to. Like I've got sisters, like I understand this thing. And sometimes I even ask them, I'm like, do you want me to like give you a solution, or do you want me to just listen? I'm like, just listen. And then a lot of times like they'll like be talking about some problem, like, well, you could do this, this, or this. And they'll be like, I don't want your solutions, Richard. I want you to just listen to what I have to say. And I'm like, I did listen and I've calculated a perfect solution. Do you want it? You know, like,
oh, look, another man who thinks his opinion is valid.
Thank you, Andrew.
That's what they would say. Yeah, I think.
So all women would say that? Andrew?
No.
Are you a reverse misogynist?
No, I'm just putting a tag group on what your comment was.
Okay, cool.
There's a tag group on Facebook called "Oh, look, another man who has an opinion or who has an unwanted opinion" or something like that. Yeah, it's basically a lot of times
I get so annoyed when people.
Well, the thing is the reason why I think maybe you feel like you're getting those responses a lot of times too is because it comes from, like you said, if someone's telling you something in your brain, you're like, oh, they're coming to me because they want my advice or like a solution to a problem. But
they want me for a problem solve.
Sometimes they just want you to be just someone to talk to or whatever.
Sounding board or something.
Like I don't necessarily want your opinion. I just want like to talk or whatever, like, you know, or whatever. You might have to tighten that.
No, that's fine. I got it. Yeah.
But yeah, like I think a lot of times guys want to be the fixers. Like we want to be like, oh, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And like,
I think that's just nature. Like
yeah,
evolutionarily
I'm not denying
speaking,
that that's
it's
nature,
like
but I'm just saying that's why
solution.
that's why there's sometimes the disconnect and there's just like a fine line you have to dance around, like figuring out if people actually want your opinion or your advice, or if they're just like stating something. Or
and that's something that I've learned over time is to ask.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, be like, I need to talk to you about something. It's like, and this is, again, call me a journalist, but with girls. Like, I had a friend come over last night. He showed up, knocked on my door, started telling me a story about something he was going through. And I was like, oh, he's telling me because he wants my advice. He wants my opinion. Cool. So I just like tell him my opinion. But like, flip that switch and a girl comes over and knocks on my door and starts telling me a story. I'm like, she might be just telling me a story to tell me a story. I just might be the one person that, you know, that she can get it all out, you know, like I might, you know, so I'll ask, I'll be like, do you want me to like, be like, do you want me to say, like, do you want me to do, like, I can help you with this if you want it. And sometimes they'll be like, no, like, I already know what I need to do. I just wanted to, you know, bitch about it for a little while. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I get it. But I feel like it seems to be more of a female trait than a male trait. I don't know. I just feel like men are naturally good problem solvers. You know, we're the hunter types, and, you know, women are more of the gatherer, communication, you know, like nurturing, like parental, community driven people. And a lot of the times they're just talking to talk. They don't really necessarily want a solution.
I don't know if I agree with that 100%, but I agree with the tendencies. Like, sure. I just don't like when you say men are naturally problem solvers. It's like, nah, that sounds kind of dick.
No, I mean that in the sense of like
women just want to talk. Men are problem solvers. Men get shit done, but women just want to gather and fucking talk in the fields while they gather the strawberries.
That's legitimately what I mean. I mean, like in the evolutionary perspective, like take us back hundreds of thousands of years.
I know, but that's very
men were problem solvers.
I know, but I agree, but like
it's inbred. It's
finding
it's bred into our genes.
You're
solve the problem of eating today. Find food. Hunt. Like,
okay. Find the problem of the baby is crying and why it's fucking crying. Does it want milk or does it want fucking food or does it want, like, there's also problems that women solve like all the time that are problems. Like,
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Men solve the, oh, we need food problem. I killed the fucking pig. Like, yeah, the fucking 2 + 2 problems. Yes, we're good at solving those problems. Women are very good at solving like empathetic problems, and like that's why people want a woman for certain things and a man for certain things. Like if I'm gonna go get a personal trainer or whatever, I want a dude that looks like how I want to look. I'm not gonna get a girl personal trainer because I don't want to look like her. You know what I mean?
Or an overweight male personal trainer. Those are my favorite.
If I want to go, for example, have a babysitter, or again, that's a fucking bad example because people are like, oh, okay, yeah, women are just to take care of kids.
You were an au pair. So.
I was an au pair too, but I'm just saying, like, there are stereotypically things that it's like, oh, that's a man's job or whatever. But there are things that people want women to do and don't want men to do, and there are things that people want men to do and women to do. And I just think that you saying, well, men are just naturally better problem solvers is kind of bullshit.
I never said better. I just said
you were naturally problem solvers. Okay, naturally problem solvers. Women are not naturally problem solvers. Like, different problem. Life is literally about solving problems. So
Agreed.
I just don't agree with like
my statement was generalist.
Yeah, I don't really agree. But I'm not saying that to be like, oh, but well, I have to pander. I'm literally just saying like there's also a lot of things that I think like I'm inherently not good at solving.
And I don't disagree with that. You know, like I come from a family of strong women. You know, like I have 2 older sisters and a mom that were, you know, what I would consider like some OG feminists. They would never call themselves feminists, but like they worked hard for their own money. They took care of a family. They provided, you know, they were strong-willed. They were independent. Like that's the model that I have.
Yeah,
and
I
even
guess,
like, you know, like strong-willed, independent, you know.
I guess here's the thing that I just have a problem with in general. I hate being like, well, I'm a man, so I'm this. It's the same fucking thing as going, well, I'm a Gemini, so I'm this. I'm a woman, so I'm this. No, dude, you're a fucking complex human being. Like, there's no reason why, like, oh, well, I'm a man, so I'm this way. Oh, you're just a woman, so you're this way. Like, that's the same thing as being like, oh, well, I'm a Scorpio and you're a fucking Cancer, so we're just not compatible. It's like, no.
Great way to cut out, like 80% of the dating pool.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's just fucking stupid to say. And I think that's where a lot of people have problems is they generalize and they put people in a box. Mm-hmm. Because they don't want to like accept that someone like they're projecting like my mom was this way, so all women are this way, or my sister was always nagging me about this, so all women nag, or like just like things like that.
Yeah, or people that have had experiences in a bubble, like the whole all men are trash conversation. It's like you may have had experience with 10 dudes that were trash, but that does not mean all men are trash.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I like...
Or like all women are sluts. It's like...
Well, that's why I like being in those polar opposite Facebook groups, because I get to see the arguments from both sides, because it's funny because in the sometimes I will literally have to check, and I almost play a game with myself where I'm like, is this a post that a woman is posting in the men are trash group calling out a dude, or is this a post from a dude that's just being a straight up misogynist like dick? And I don't know whether like, and I have to guess, I'm like, oh, this is a girl calling a guy out, or this is a guy thinking that this is reality. You know what I mean? And it's funny because I like being in those polar opposite groups because I get to see it from both sides. I'm like, oh, you're right. It doesn't feel good when if any woman like makes some post about women being something, there's guaranteed always a dude gonna hop in there and be like, well, actually, it's like, I didn't fucking want your well, actually, motherfucker. Like, there's always a well, actually type fucking fedora guy, or a fucking like alpha fucking, oh, well, actually. It's like, no, oh, look, another dude with an opinion I don't fucking give a shit about,
I think so we can look at like femininity and masculinity. I think there are, alpha males and alpha females. I think there are beta males and beta females, and I don't actually believe in that term alpha and beta, but I just mean it on a spectrum of like, there's some women out there that are like, there's women that are like, listen, tell you what, if you don't cook, clean, and suck your man's dick, you're a piece of shit woman. Like there's women that will say that, and then there's guys on the other side being like, yay. And then there's dudes that will say something like the opposite, be like, man, if you're not, the type of person who, provides for your family and, and doesn't make a lot of money, and man, if you go out and you don't drive the car, if your girl drives a car, you're a bitch. It's like those spectrums exist. And then the opposite spectrums exist, and everyone in between.
Yeah.
And it's like, I tend to just rely on my own life experience, which is limited. I'm a white dude. You know what I mean? Like, so like I can only rely on my own personal life experience, but I don't get it from Facebook groups, but there are other places where I'll see, feminist conversations or feminist rants, or like my sister, for example. My sister is, probably one of the more stronger, highly opinionated feminist women I know. And, even when it comes to talking about like, race or other marginalized groups, she married a black guy. She's got 2 black kids. So this is like very, very close to her heart, where she and I will have, like back and forths about something. And then I'll be like, oh, I was wrong about that. Or afterwards I'll be like, oh, you're crazy. Like it's, it's just conversations that we have that I'm always open to conversations, and like, sure, maybe my opinions about things are just, rooted in, my experience or what I believe or what I don't believe, and years and years.
Well, I think it's also,
I don't mean to generalize. If I did generalize, oops.
Yeah,
but
it's
just like
for
that's
example,
been my experience.
Yeah, I think you just always have to leave room for the other person, because when you are trying to like argue a point, but like both sides are like kind of saying the same thing, you can still have like a very big disconnect, because you're not putting it in the like for example, in the last podcast, I said right out front, I'm like, I'm not a climate change denier. Like I said that right out front. But if I was like, dude, the fires in Australia have nothing to do with climate change, blah, 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 blah. Some people will take that grain and go, oh, Andrew's a fucking idiot and doesn't believe in climate change. And that's what they take from it. The other thing that someone could have taken from what you said is like, well, Richard said that women, all they want to do is tell stories. And he said he had the perfect solution anytime someone comes with them someone comes with them with an opinion or whatever. Mm-hmm. But that's not exactly what you were saying. You're like, what you were saying was when people come to me, I try to make a logical conclusion to it, but sometimes that's not what people want, which is a perfectly fine thing to say.
Yes.
But people will pick and choose what they want to hear because, again, when you go out into the world searching for a truth and that you're trying to prove to be true, every freaking, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail,
Yeah, and like I kind of funny to steer this in one way. Like I know that there are like disability groups on Facebook that trash the living shit out of me.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know this is because I have some covert ops that are a part of that group that will like DM me from the side, be like, hey, I just want to let you know that, this whole group is really mad at you for this video you put out and this thing you said, but like I defended you and I just want to let you know that like I understand where you're coming from, but they only saw like this one little thing that you said out of context and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, cool. Like that's fine. I mean, I think that is just a part of what happens whenever you share any opinions publicly ever, is like people take things out of context. I saw this one, back on the conspiracy theory train, like I saw someone like put up this video. It was like Bill Gates like talking at a conference, and it was like clearly he was just like making a jestful joke. Like the audience was laughing, like you could tell he wasn't being serious. And he was talking about like how to eliminate the entire population of the earth, like a step-by-step on like how to eliminate the population. And they had edited the crap out of it because like in the middle of the crowd laughing, it would chop, and then he would like say a line or two and they would chop it again. And like the top, it was like, Bill Gates says that vaccines are used for population control. Stay woke. And it's like, you edited this for him to say that. Like, I actually just watched the whole video and I could tell it was a joke in jest for fun to prove a point about something else that we didn't see, that we don't even know, but you've just chopped this up to make it sound. And like, bruh, it was just so funny to me because I'm like, the sad part is a lot of people see this and be like, yeah, man, don't do vaccines. It's for population control.
The other thing that's, that's a whole conversation about like fake news and shit like that. But I have some serious like worries about like journalism and stuff, because journalism is being only steered towards what gets clicks and views because that's what pays the bills, and not really being steered towards like what the actual truth is. I mean, we've even had articles written about us that are wrong, not in a way that,
malicious or anything,
was malicious, but there was just straight up easy to disprove facts that they said about you that weren't like malicious or attacking, but they were just wrong. There was one article that said you got hurt in Savannah, Georgia. It's like, no, I was going to Savannah College of Art and Design at the time
in Atlanta,
at the Atlanta campus. Like I wasn't in Savannah. It's like that was a small conclusion to jump to, but whoever was writing that didn't live in Georgia. They didn't know there was two campuses, so they just go, "Oh, he's going to SCAD? He was in Savannah." And it's like,
even though in the story I've said a million times, I always say Atlanta.
You're
Atlanta,
running through Atlanta. Exactly. And they're like, oh, Savannah, Atlanta, same thing. They're in Georgia. He's probably in Savannah, but just says Atlanta because no one knows who Savannah is. They make assumptions. And that's the problem, is people just aren't thoughtful enough. People are just going around, along their day. They're not, I don't think that, I have like a very strong belief that like most humans are like trying to just do the best they can. Like no one's out here trying to maliciously hurt you. People that believe in fucking horoscopes and astrology and they're like, oh, you're not compatible with me, you're not a Gemini. They're trying to watch out for number one. They're not trying to be like hating on you like, oh, you're a Gemini, fuck you.
Yeah,
they're literally trying to like protect themselves. They're like, last time I got in a relationship with a guy that wasn't compatible with me, he broke my heart, so I'm going to protect myself. You know what I mean? Like
most people aren't against you, they're just for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. But they're also a lot of times, I think, not even thoughtful enough to think about anything else but themselves, which is a problem, like I just think most people, they don't listen, and I'm talking to myself here. Like, there's things that I can get better at. I'm not a fucking perfect person, but I think a lot of times people just are not thoughtful and considerate and conscious. And I think that's like a big thing that a lot of people are pushing towards is like conscious living and stuff like that. Like, even with, what we're eating, like I don't think that eating animals is bad, but I definitely don't agree with like factory farms. Like I don't believe in like how they're doing that shit, but also I don't really like see, I don't think the benefits outweigh the costs right now of me like eating meat or, just like things like that, or even just, people not thinking about the fact of like, oh, I'm going to go like flush these drugs down the toilet or whatever. It's like, you do realize that like our water supplies are getting like degenerated because people are flushing drugs down the toilet.
And also now like, we're all on antidepressants, whether we know it or not.
Or like, fucking like girls at music festivals putting like tons of glitter all over. Then what do you do with that glitter? Oh, I'm going to go wash it off in the shower. Where does that go? They're finding fish with like tons of glitter in their fucking stomachs and stuff. It's like, because it doesn't break down. You're literally creating all these microplastics that are just fucking pointless. Mm-hmm. And people just don't think. They just don't fucking think. And that's why I think I gravitate towards like, the kind of like hippie side of things sometimes because those are the types of people that do think. I do think though that a lot of them go off the deep end and start believing in the fucking hippy dippy woo woo type stuff. But there's a fine line to balance on where there's, I think, a level where we can all come together and be more like conscious as like a planet and just be like, okay, is this good for me now or is this good for the like entire planet?
Yeah, it's how to be like conscious and mindful. And, a big part of my minimalism journey was that, I think about like all the things I consumed, all the packaging that I had, all of like the fast, dude, I feel guilty about having to use like something plastic, but there's every time I pee, but there's not really like, I don't have an alternative. That's like an unfortunate thing. And whenever I have the option,
you're the excuse. Like you are the excuse. Like,
but everywhere else, I try to consume as little as possible.
Yeah, like single-use plastics. Like if I can reduce my consumption, I'm, in whatever grand scheme of things, maybe I'm offsetting yours. You know what I mean? Like because you can't help that. And I think that that's fine. I think as like a carbon footprint or whatever you want to call it, like your use of single-use plastics as in the form of like catheters and things like that, I think the general population would find acceptable because they're like, oh, he doesn't have another way. Like I'm fortunate that I can just pee normally. I don't have a disability.
But even when I find like, so for example, I only use a lot of other single-use stuff when I'm out and about and I have to carry it in my bag. Like when I'm here, I've got like a big bag of wipes instead of individual wipes. I've got like a big tube of lube instead of individual lubes. I got a massive thing hand sanitizer instead of a bunch of little ones. Like I try to, whenever I have the opportunity, to consume less and to have less and to be more mindful of, everything. And yeah, sure. I'm sure there's other areas where I can improve. I think everyone could improve. Like, I did the whole vegan thing for a while and the reason I had to stop is because I found out I was like allergic to wheat and like what can I do? Like, how can I possibly survive on like just vegetables and fruits? Like, I don't think that's something I want to attempt to do. And like
also the circle of life, it's like people talk about how like killing animals is like murder and stuff, but it's like the circle of life is that animals kill other animals, and arguably we're at the top of the food chain. Like it makes sense that we would eat animals. Like it's not that we're doing it to be sadistic and fucking like, oh, like just like I was talking about with last week with the Australia fires. It's not like the people that are doing these preventative burns hate trees. They're doing it to prevent something else. It's not like I want to, eat chickens because I fucking hate chickens and I want to like ritualistically like I want to eat the eggs. Not only do I want to eat the chicken, I want to eat their fucking fetuses. I want to eat their eggs because I fucking hate those chickens and I want to eat them and just consume them and shit them out like the fucking putrid scum of the earth they are. No, I just fucking like eating chicken. Like, I don't hate chickens. I love chickens. Chickens are cool. I fucking taken care of my neighbor's chickens. Like they're awesome, And like, I think people just get this idea in their brain that they love animals so much and they have like such a anthropomorphized like vision of like what an animal is, again, to go back to veganism and stuff like that. But I do agree, like there's got to be a better way. And we probably do, as a society, we do probably eat a lot more meat than we should or could, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and I also think about like let's kind of roll back to one of my pre-agricultural days when I was talking about hunter-gatherer. It's like the human body evolved on meat, like more than likely. Like you had fish, you had beef, pork, chicken, like or red meat, white meat, like whatever you could score is what you ate, and then we've figured out the agriculture and like, oh, we can grow plants and we understand the seasons and like, like there's been different revolutions, man understanding fire, agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, internet revolution. Like there's all these revolutions that we go through, and, internet is the beautiful one because it's the information, now that we've got access to infinite information, but then kind of going back to what you're saying about journalism is like a lot of that information can be wrong, and to be able to understand the difference between opinion and fact, and also being able to understand critical thinking skills to know like what is fake and what's not and how to do research. And
I think we'll probably come up with some sort of equivalent to the peer-reviewed journal. Like, how there's like, in science, we've got these peer-reviewed journal things. I think there'll probably at some point be an equivalent of like a fact-checking kind of thing.
Facebook's trying to do that.
They're trying to do it. I think it's a noble cause. I don't know if Facebook's the right person to do it, but one thing I kind of want to go back for a second because it kind of ties into what we're just talking about with like being conscious and stuff like that is like the government places like certain things on us, right, that we like have to do, right? Like there's just certain things like
driver's license, taxes.
And vaccines is one of those things that like you like legally like have to do and things like that. Like I don't know if it's breaking the law
to attend like public school.
Yeah. But here's the interesting kind of thing, and this is where I kind of want to like talking about playing the devil's advocate here, because if you think about it, you're like the government gives like subsidies to all these meat companies, like, oh, the government actually is in cahoots with all these things and blah 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 blah.
Corn, milk, cow, chicken.
Here's where the thing goes. It's like when you're born, dude, the government just makes you fucking put a needle in you and squirt some stuff in. You don't know what that shit is. Dude, the government's in cahoots with the fucking vaccine companies because the vaccine companies are actually run by Monsanto. And Monsanto, like, there's like a whole rabbit hole, and it's like, dude, I'm just a human, man.
I also get a serial number. It's called my social security number.
Yeah, dude. And like, dude, the government, bro, Big Brother is watching, bro. We're in surveillance state. Dude, these phones, man, they're watching us all times. They got cameras all over. Dude, they're putting more and more cameras. They're putting more sensors in these phones, man. They're tracking us, bro. And even, dude, bro, you know what's a total mindfuck? When you're born, the doctor makes you. They put a vaccine in you, bro. Who knows? Dude, that might be the thing that's holding back society, because no one actually knows what's in that vaccine needle. You just have to trust the doctors, bro. And if you don't trust the doctors and you don't vaccinate your kid, who knows? Your kid might be Albert Einstein.
I wish that was on mic.
AJ went,
what the hell?
No, but it's true, man. Like, because you think about...
That's called a slippery slope. What you just went down, and that's actually another logical fallacy.
It's another logical fallacy, but it's the same way that people go down the path of religion and all these other things. It's like the same fucking thinking, and it's like, who are you to tell me what you need to inject into my body because blah blah blah. And it's like, well, actually,
reduction of all-cause mortality, reduction of infant mortality, and reduction of and improvement of herd immunity.
And the thing is again, like, it's like, I'm not a climate change denier, I'm not a vaccine denier, but there are some weird shit that has happened after people get vaccines. Like, there is a thing that can happen. Like, there's gotta be. There's no way that a small percentage of the population doesn't have an adverse reaction to something being injected into you. That's just a fact.
Well, of course.
That's what I'm saying, and that's why parents are like, well, if
we drive cars, but they're the most deadly thing out there.
I agree. And that's why there's certain people that don't fucking drive in cars. And there are certain parents that are like, they don't want to take, they're like, you know what? There's that herd immunity. If the majority of people are still immunized, whatever the fucking terminology is, and my kid isn't, we're going to be fine because my kid's not going to randomly get fucking cholera or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean?
But there are some children that are literally incapable of taking vaccines due to illness or sickness or cancers, and then those kids are at higher
susceptible.
risk.
Agreed.
At a higher risk.
Again, I'm not a vaccine denier. I think everyone should get vaccinated. At one point, I kind of was in that, like, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but that's why I'm kind of explaining this like thought process, because I think a lot of people are probably kind of in that, like, I don't want to be. It's funny because the whole meme of it about like kids, unvaccinated kids like dying and stuff, it literally became such a thing in the zeitgeist. Like, people understood it, that kids are like going to their moms and being like, "Hey, mom, am I vaccinated?" And their mom's like, "No, silly, I didn't want to vaccinate you." And they're like, "Dude, I'm gonna fucking die." And they go to the doctor and get vaccinated when they turn like 16 or whatever.
18.
Yeah,
18. Yeah, I saw
like
some mom put up a post on Facebook. It was like, I found out my kid is gonna get vaccinated when he turns 18 next month. Is there anything I can do? Or is there anything I can do? And someone wrote, "Except the fact that you raised a child smarter than you." Yeah. And I was like, God damn.
It was because he was unvaccinated, bro. He didn't have those limitations on his brain. He's smart as shit. He's Albert Einstein, dude.
Yeah, they fucking inject computer chips into your brain too.
Yeah, we've got about 20 minutes left. I wanted to talk about college.
Yeah, let's do it. So
yeah, that's another conspiracy, bro. Fucking the government, dude. It's trying to fucking force you to think the way they want you to think, bro. And you got to think outside the box. Don't fucking take vaccines and don't go to college, bro. You'll be fine.
I think reason one why a lot of people go to college, one, everyone's doing it. You leave on your sophomore, junior, senior year. Everyone's like, what college are you going to go to? What degree are you going to get? What path are you on? Everyone goes. I think another reason why people go is because there's this belief that in order to get a job in the field you want to get in, you have to have a degree.
I don't think anyone is
which is true for some, like all STEM fields, some other fields, but you know.
Well, the thing is, I don't think anyone is like confused about the reasons why you would go. I think more people are like, wait, what? Like, because I think the reasons for going are more popularly known than the reasons for not going, right? Like, I don't, yes, like, you're right. Like, those are the reasons why.
I mean, the negatives are you go into a huge amount of debt. You know, the negatives are, you know, that at least for me, like, I don't like to be told what to learn and when to learn it. I want to learn what I would have learned when I want to learn it.
Oh, well, aren't you such a little snowflake, huh? You don't want to learn what we want you to learn?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I like the idea of, you know, spending a year or two becoming, you know, expert on something and then deciding if I want to take it even further. You know, here's an example. I'll kind of weave this into some spinal cord injury stuff. It's like a lot of people lose the ability to work or lose the ability to do the work that they were doing. And a lot of the times people go back to college, and they go back to college usually for some dumb degree that technically doesn't need college, or like what I think doesn't technically need college. They're just trying to get like a desk job, basically. But the thing is, like, you can do any kind of desk job, any kind of sales job. You can go to trade school and learn a trade. You can be a welder. You can be a network manager. You can, you know, build things. You can take entrepreneurial routes. You can, you know, start your own foundation and do nonprofit work. Like, there's a lot of options you can do. And it kind of goes back to this whole, like, building your new compelling future. It's like, you might not be able to do the thing you were doing before you got hurt, but then you have your spinal cord injury and then you go on Social Security disability, and then you feel like a worthless, lame piece of shit because you're not contributing to society. You're not contributing to your family. You don't feel valuable. And a lot of people are like, man, I wish I could work. I just can't do that work I was doing. And it's like, find something else to do. Like, you have the ability to find something else to do. And I see a lot of people go back to college, but then they'll get some nonsense like liberal arts degree or like some, you know, psychology degree or an English degree. Yeah. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's dumb. Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that's kind of the stereotypical thing too. Like, it's like, oh, I'm getting like a women's studies degree. It's like, yeah, cool, but like, what are you realistically going to do with that? And
what job is that?
What job is that? The real thing for me about college that's very interesting is I think we're going to be, it's funny because I had a very hard conversation with myself. I went to college for 1 year, and at the end of that year, I had to sit down with myself and have a very hard conversation where I had to create a compelling argument for why I wasn't going to continue doing it, because there are a lot of downsides to college, like, for example, the debt that you go in general. But the thing is like, a lot of kids out there, they're in two camps. One camp is they don't have the money, but they're going to take on student loans. And then the other camp is, well, my parents have already set aside a bunch of money for me to do this thing anyway, so why wouldn't I go and party my, and not even necessarily party, but like, why wouldn't I go and do this thing that they really want me to do?
Another camp is scholarships.
Yeah, and another camp is scholarships. You can get a lot of financial aid and be going for free. I think the interesting thing is that we have to take a giant step back from all of it in general and realize that we are going through massive shifts in society that we were talking about earlier with the internet and everything, but also we're going through massive shifts financially. We're going through massive shifts as a global community, and college used to be this thing that was up on a pedestal, and there was a lot of jobs that required a college degree, and there were high paying jobs.
And the training, the college that was taught to you was current. Now a lot of the information that's taught to you is 5 years behind.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, a lot of people now, I would equate this to people that are like in coding and stuff like that 10 years ago, because those types of people were the ones that were able to go straight into these technology giants and go into extremely high paying jobs immediately. And people are talking now, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to get my kid to like learn coding as a baby now. It's like, the reason why coding is a high paying job now is because it's supply and demand. Mm-hmm. The world revolves around supply and demand. That's fucking it. It revolves around supply and demand. When the people that are our parents' age went to college, there was about I think it was like 500,000 college students or something like that. I literally had an article.
That's a wrong number, because there's like 300 million people in the U.S.
Sorry, there in 1919, an estimated 500,000 students were enrolled in American colleges. That was 1919,
That's
a long time ago.
100 years ago, yeah.
100 years later, nearly 20 million students are enrolled in college. So there was 500,000 in 1919. Now there's 20 million. So basically, again, supply and demand, basic math. You realize that degree is extremely commodified, and it's not worth what it was worth back then. I mean, it's just, again, supply and demand. The reason why coders are being paid so much is because it was a very specific skill set that was in high demand, and there was not a high supply. So the thing is, if we saturate the market with all these kids that know how to code, coding is just going to become a fucking minimum wage job. The thing is in life, you have to find your value to the world.
Or even to the marketplace.
Exactly. The marketplace is the world. The world, you have to find your value to the world. And if you are highly replaceable and you know a skill that's not it's not a skill that you really need a high level of skill to know, it's a very easy, simple thing to learn and do, you're not worth very much to the marketplace. And people feel this entitled mentality that like, well, I did all the right things and I checked all the right boxes, so I should get paid this. Meh.
I mean, you can do all the right things in life and still lose. You can do
100%.
all the and still fail. And what's rather interesting is we were talking to the heating and air guy about this.
Yeah.
He has a very hard time finding anyone who wants to work for him. He goes, it's 60 hours a week and you get paid $100,000. He goes, no one wants this job. He's like, you could have a house, a BMW, and an entire family off this paycheck. He's like, but everyone's too good to get their hands dirty and be on their hands and knees. He goes, you get 6 figures for 60 hours a week working with me.
Because everyone wants to do something cool and glamorous. I mean, I'm guilty of it. We're fucking YouTubers. Like, we have a fucking podcast. What's more fucking cushy than this job? Like, we're not on our hands and knees fucking tightening bolts and, working on cars or something like that.
I'm not disagreeing, but I'm saying that is a 6 month, 9 month, or 1 year program, no college required.
Yeah.
And you dive headfirst into a 6-figure job.
And there's a lot of jobs that are like HVAC. that job's never going away.
Plumbing, never going away. Electric, never going away. Nursing, never going away. You can take a 3-month program and be a nurse. You can be a certified nursing assistant. You know, like there is so much.
We know that too well.
You can be a welder, you know, a fabricator. Fabricators are going, ain't no, like, shit gets built. We need fabricators.
Yeah,
and that's a job you can do in a wheelchair. There's a couple people I know who fabricators in chairs.
Yeah, and it's just very interesting that we have this idea that just because we followed the same steps as our parents or we did exactly what like our teachers or our parents said or whatever, that's like, you know, when you're growing up, you trust everything that your parents say because they do know
more than you.
More than you. It feels like they know everything. And not to discredit anyone's parents or my parents or anything, but this is one thing that I big time learned in like MLM is like, if your parents are not successful in the thing that you want to do,
don't listen to them.
Like it's very hard to they mean well, of course, and they want the best for you, but you at some point you're gonna have to stop sucking the teat. You know what I mean? Like you have to break off and have a hard conversation with yourself. And Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this a lot, is like a lot of kids are on their parents' dime still because, and like a lot of, you know, boomers and parents right now are like always talking shit on the millennial generation. It's like, dude, you fucking made us the way we are. You made us fucking soft, dude, because you paid for everything and you gave us everything. Like the way that you make someone hardened and make someone value what they have and all that is you make them work for what they have.
Well, think about
and I'm grateful to my parents that they didn't always give me what I wanted because I think it made me a better person. I had to buy the clothes I wanted. I had to buy the game systems I wanted, things like that. Like granted, there were a lot of things that they did give me that set me up on a path that was far more cushy and successful and whatever than most people. But
I feel the same way about my situation. Like my mom was just too broke to buy me anything. So I had to like get up my own job and be able to, like, if I wanted a new bike or a new video game system, or if I wanted to play paintball or have a car, she was like, yeah, you can have whatever you want. You got to pay for it.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you think I'm going to pay for it? There's things that I want too.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I got groceries. I want a car. I got rent, you know, I got your cell phone. Those are enough. And then I think about, so it's like our grandparents went through like the Great Depression and that hardened them up and toughened them up. And then post World War II, there was an economic boom. That's why they call the baby boomers. It was an economic boom. Everyone was having babies.
Came back from war and had babies.
Came back from war, had babies. Yeah. You could go to college or even not go to college.
And you could work your way through college.
You could not go to college, work a minimum wage job, own a house, have a wife and 2 kids, and be fine. You could have like what the fuck? That's not possible today. I know people that work 3 minimum wage jobs and can't even afford their apartment.
Yeah. It's sad. The weird thing about minimum wage too is like
it hasn't changed in over a decade. That's the first thing that's messed up.
Yeah, but also there's a lot of fucked up factors about a lot of this stuff, but the big thing is for me, if you ever see the massive population going towards one thing, you got to think about how many people are doing the wrong thing out there, dude. There's a lot of people that are not good role models and a lot of people that are not people you want to look up to and emulate what they're doing, because the average American is overweight, overworked, underpaid, and unhealthy.
Massively in debt too.
And in debt, dude, exactly. They've got tons of credit card debt. They've probably got tons of student loan debt. Student loan debt is the biggest form of debt in America. It's larger than credit card debt. And there is a fuckload of credit card debt.
Yeah, I think the average American household has like $70,000 in credit card debt or something like that.
Yeah, and the sad thing is like these
which is insane. Think about that. Fucking insane.
It is insane. But the even more fucked up thing is that we're setting up kids, literally kids that are just coming out of high school, and we're telling them that it's going to be worth it for them to take out these loans, that they're going to be paying off for years and years and years to come. And it's like, oh, you just got out of college and let's say you're one of the fortunate ones that's not being underpaid and you are making $65K or $60K or $70K. And I'd say that's a great job. The thing is you've got now to upkeep your lifestyle that you've been used to in college. You're going to have a pretty decent apartment that's going to be kind of expensive. You're going to probably want like a decent car because you've got a nice job and you don't want to be showing up in a jalopy. You got to be wearing like nice clothes to kind of show up and be presentable at work. And then you also have your $1,000 to $1,500 student loan payment that you're doing. And then you've got a little bit left over for fun. you're basically living paycheck to paycheck. You're still in the rat race, but on paper, you're making more profit. But all of it's going back to all these things that you've put into debt for yourself. It's like you're setting yourself up where instead of starting at square one, you're setting yourself up to start from square -10.
I saw a Twitter thread that was screenshots of people's student loans, and it was like 10 years ago, I took out a student loan for $70,000. So far, I've made a $38,000 payment, and I owe $72,000. It's like, huh? Like
interest, motherfucker.
The interest will kill you.
Yeah, and a lot of kids just, I mean, dude, financial literacy is a huge thing. I mean, I'm not the most financially literate person.
I had to learn how to be financially literate, but even
more so when you have an injury and you're dealing with some big payments on certain things, and you're dealing with,
you got little money,
and you've got little money, you've got, insurance is trying to fuck you always. I mean, because if you think about it, dude, like there's so many institutions that we just take for granted. Like, oh yeah, I have life insurance. It's like, wait, what? Like, like just little things like that you just don't even think about, that are just these things that you would never have the luxury to even have in the past or whatever. And you gotta like be careful with some of those things, because I think people just take for granted, like, oh yeah, I got a credit card, I'll pay it off eventually. It's the idea of like delayed gratification,
pushing everything off to the future. Yeah, I think it was my sister who told something like this. She said, debt that is not like home debt or student debt is a representation of people's inability to be patient. Saying that you want instant gratification for long-term consequence. That if you would just wait and save up and be patient and then buy that thing versus buying it now and paying it off later.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you can buy $2,000 worth of stuff and have a $100 a month payment, and it's like in your head, you're like, it's just $100 a month. So then you buy another $2,000 worth of stuff. You're like, it's just $200 a month. And then before you know it.
Well, there's something great about having a stack of money that starts to dwindle. But with that card, you just swipe, and you never see anything. You just a number on a computer.
There's a financial guy named Dave Ramsey. And he's like, he helps people get out of debt. And one of the rules that he has is only pay everything in cash. Only carry an envelope around with cash. And not because, but so you get to watch it go away.
Yeah. So when even gas, even everything.
So when you go to buy that $5 coffee, you pull out that bill and you go, I think I'm gonna get the $2 coffee instead. I think I'm gonna go home. I got coffee at home, and then you put it back and you put it in your pocket. Versus just swipe. And I think that's definitely the youth are getting fucked up with Venmo and Cash App and PayPal and microtransactions and credit cards and debit cards. No one sees money anymore. It's all like invisible and all made up. And
we're living in the fucking simulation, Richard.
Yeah, and it's like they just don't understand, man.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing I wanted to read from this article about college. It says this is from Gary Vaynerchuk's website. I like Gary V, but sometimes he's a little bit crazy. But I for the most part, I love Gary V.
Yeah, Gary V's one of these people that like I can handle for like a week or two.
Exactly.
And then I'm like, hey, Gary V, shut the fuck up, go away. And then like in a couple of months, I'm like, I could use some Gary V right now.
Yeah. So this article is about college, and he says pressure from parents is not a good enough reason to collect enormous debt. Parents are forcing their kids to collect debt just so they can feel good about their kids going to a brand name university. And I definitely experienced that. I know that, my parents always, not necessarily my mom or my dad, not to throw my dad under the bus, but he always wanted me to go to like a good school, like, University of Georgia or whatever. And it feels good when you're hanging out with your friends and you're able to say like, oh, what's Andrew up to? Oh, he's doing great. He's a sophomore at UGA. They don't have to say anything else. You checked the box.
That's the same thing as being like, my business is successful right now. It's like, my kid is successul.
Exactly. It's just a box. But when you're like, oh yeah, he actually dropped out and he's doing this. He's trying to do this other thing. Oh, he's doing this other thing. Oh, he's
working in this escape game place and like a restaurant and like trying to do YouTube. And it's like, But now
he's making music. He's doing good. He's on YouTube.
But now it's different because it's like now it can be like, oh yeah, he's running a successful YouTube channel, and like he doesn't have to work at the restaurant or this game place or whatever.
Supportive parents, it doesn't matter what the fuck you do, you can be supported. But the thing is that idea that like, well, I went to Auburn and I need my son to go to Auburn so I can be validated, and he needs to go to the same fraternity.
Are you at a Pi Delta Chi?
He needs to be in the same fraternity that I was in and hang out with the same people and do the same things. It's like people are living vicariously through their children 100%. They go to all the tailgates. Sports, they go to the games. Yeah, exactly. And
sports is the biggest thing for that.
This is the other thing I wanted to close on. It says the brand of college will collapse in the next recession. So the brand of college, meaning like you going to college to kind of like have that status symbol. And it says, I genuinely believe that student loan debt will tear down this economy, which I agree. There are so many kids out there in tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt on insane interest, making $34K a year, still getting big loans to buy cars and apartments, and the math just doesn't add up. I really think it's only a matter of time until everything collapses.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end. You know, it seems like if you guys know anything about like the mortgage crisis and the Big Short and the big fall of 2008, where basically what they were doing is giving out loans to people that couldn't afford them, and then when they couldn't afford them, they would just default on the loans, and now that's what's happening to student debt.
You can't default, though. You can't bankrupt yourself out of a student loan debt. That's the fucked up part.
You can't bankrupt yourself, but you can default. And what that means is like then they can sell it to someone else.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah,
okay, sorry, I was wrong thing. But student loan debt is the only type of debt that you cannot bankrupt yourself out of. Because doctors were doing that back in the day.
Student loan debt that you get from the government. Private student loan debt you can bankrupt out of, I think. Like, for example, if you go to like Wells Fargo and you're like, I need $25,000 for school, you can bankrupt out of that, but you can't out of like Sally Mae.
Well, there's certain classifications. Like if you just say you want a loan and then you go use it for a school, yeah. But if you're like specifically getting like a subsidized government assistance, like,
yes.
Because I think if it's government assistance, yes, but it's all, I think, like even if you went through a privatized investment firm to get like student loans, I still think they get some sort of like weird subsidy, and it's like classified under a certain type of loan. Because like I had a savings account. There was a certain type of savings account where if I didn't, it was not taxed if I used the money on education. But since I dropped out, I had to be taxed on all of the savings. It was a bad investment in that case, because there's the reason why you want to have certain types of investments and things is because a lot of times you can save it and you can't pull it out for a certain amount of years, but then you don't get taxed on it or whatever. And that was a type of private investment thing, but because it was classified under this certain classification that I had to use it for education, I had to be heavily taxed on it, which was just, unfortunate, but that's just the reality of it. I wasn't ever going to use it on education. I knew that. So, I just pulled it out before it racked up even more tax, percentage.
Jesus.
Yeah. Right, but the thing the one last thing to say on that, don't feel guilty as a kid, like, cause it's just like in spinal cord injury where you get hurt and like everyone like raises a bunch of money for you to like go to rehab, and you're like, guess I have to go to rehab now. I didn't even want to do this or whatever. Like, I just want to get back to living. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing that happens when you have a graduation party and everyone gives you all these donations and they give you, a graduation present, and you go, oh, grandpa gave you this much money and grandpa has been saving all this money for you to go to college, and you feel guilty about like not going to college. You're like, well, fuck, like, I guess I have to. Like, grandpa's been saving up all this money for years and years. And like, that's how I felt. Like, I felt really bad about it, but you have to have a hard conversation with yourself and say, at the end of the day, dude, are you doing this because you're just lazy and you just want that money? Or are you doing it because you're actually realizing like, this is not the best investment into myself. I don't want to,
Are you doing it for you or are you doing it for someone else?
Exactly.
That's the biggest question you have to ask yourself in any decision that you ever make, honestly.
100%.
Am I doing this for me, or am I doing this to make other people happy? Am I doing this to please other people? Like, what am I actually doing?
You also have to have a healthy grain of salt with that, because sometimes you got to buckle down and do some shit you don't want to do.
Agreed.
But at the end of the day, big major life decisions and things that you're doing on a macro scale, you should be doing them for the greater good of yourself, and not just like simple pleasures like, oh, well, I'm going to go, do this for me. I need to go do this. I need to go to the strip club for me, man.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
I know.
I'm talking about big decisions.
I'm clarifying.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of self-congratulatory things and things that are not beneficial to you that you can say are, for me, man, I just need to treat yourself. I'm going to go, I need to self-care. It's like, no, like there's a healthy medium in that. But anyways, wrap this up. Let's everyone needs to go jump in the Facebook group and weigh in on all the shit that we talked about today, because we covered a lot. But that's pretty much it. Anything else, Richard?
Follow us on places.
Follow us on places and the Facebook group. Bye.
Bye.